Welcome, everyone, to the Pockets of Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Stanley, and with me today is my guest, Lisa Zawrotny. Welcome to the show, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you on. How are you today?
Oh, thank you, Desiree. I am so looking forward to this conversation for so many different reasons, not the least of which is that I have listened to your podcast and I love what you're about. So let's see if I can help inspire and show everyone just how doable this all is.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And again, welcome. Lisa is the owner of Positively Productive Systems. And specifically, she is a productivity strategist and an accountability coach. And I love that. I love the accountability coach. I've got a really great friend of mine. Her and I have been accountability partners for, gosh, going on 4 years. And so I think it's so truly beneficial. So let's go ahead and jump right in and tell us how it was that you decided to start Positively Productive Systems.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief so we can dig into, more of the actionable items, but it really is important to know why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, it's to be able to say now that I know what it's like if you are in survival mode and you were feeling overwhelmed and burnout because I've been there. And how I was there was as a caregiver to my mom. She had Alzheimer's, and I was pregnant twice during that time. So at one point, I had a baby, a toddler, and my mom. And this was a lesson in patience. This was a lesson in tossing away every non-essential thing that you thought needed to be on the to-do list, and it was a lesson in just giving myself over to those that I love, and I will never regret that, but I do have to honor those who are caregivers to say, "This was a hard time in my life, so hard." And when I stepped out of it, my mom passed, and now I had, my 2 littles. The first instinct I had, and tell me if this sounds familiar, is what do I do? Do I go get a job now? And it was just that, what do I do? Right? Whenever we're trying to make an adjustment, we're in a big life transition, we're trying to fix something, we want to take action. And something inside me, and I'm so grateful it did, a voice said, wait a minute, you have a lot that you haven't dealt with. Even just stuff like bins of things that have been tucked to the side that you haven't gone through. Take some time before you get a job or add something else to your list to deal with that and to just give yourself a chance to breathe. And that path of decluttering, literally my life inside and out, was so healing for me and for my family. And I know, with kiddos, it's like if everything is, in a routine and it's simplified and it's organized, everything just flows better. And then you feed off of each other in the best way. And that's what was happening. And I was so stunned like, oh, wait, I'm onto something here. I wanted to help others do that. The first way that I did that, the first iteration of Positively Productive was actually as a professional organizer, helping people declutter. And I've never left that. I still do that, but I do it differently now because I realized it's the head and the heart that really causes the clutter. And there's so much more to it than just the stuff in your closets. So if we get to that first, right away, that's where we're going to be productive and organized and peaceful and living a life that we want to be living.
Yeah, I love all of that. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And you did touch on so many things there that I would love to explore a little bit more. And just talking about being a part of caregiving for someone, your mother, who was going through a very difficult experience in
Yeah.
life, and then taking that time for yourself and really not trying to jump into or run into the next thing that, just going to keep us busy without processing what you had just gone through. So I think that's some fantastic points for all of us to consider. Myself, I'm getting ready to go into a new phase of my life as my youngest leaves to go to college. And I am asking that question, what do I do now? And so what a great reminder for me to stop and just process.
Yeah, to reflect and to remember that there, even when there's a beautiful life transition, right?
Mhm.
There's still grief.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is a mix of emotions for you. It's an amazing time, but also a huge mix. So honoring that and honoring yourself, so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, great point for sure. It is super exciting, and I'm so thrilled for her going to the college that she wants to go to and all of the experiences that she's going to have. But yes, of course, there is a part of me that is mourning the loss of my baby, but it is an exciting time, so I'm thrilled for her. But let's talk a little bit more about, you said you transitioned a little bit from the physical organization to a little bit more, it sounds like, maybe mental organization and a little bit, not necessarily time management, but organizing the things that you want to do.
Yeah. So again, when I was in people's homes helping them with the stuff, I learned early on, like, oh, it's not really about the stuff. It's about something deeper. And, if you watch the shows like about hoarders, which is, of course, an extreme case, but really any kind of organizing show, but especially those, they're always bringing in a therapist. They're always bringing in someone to deal with the emotions, the trauma, the grief, all the things that contribute to what we do. And sometimes, even in the most, I mean, wonderful way, we can create our own clutter. I work a lot with multi passionates. And what I mean by that, they're sometimes called multi potentialites or serial entrepreneurs or polymaths, kind of the Da Vinci people, right? The ones who love a lot of different things and are lifelong learners and innovators, right? And I am one too. Well, we can cause our own clutter just by the sheer excitement, right? Entrepreneurs are innovative. And so it's like, ooh, next bright, shiny object. Well, all of those things, whether it's that clutter from something extreme or it's the excitement and innovation, we pile up stuff. And it's like, but really, that's the mental side because it's coming from maybe not like a misunderstanding, perhaps, of how we work best. Or maybe it's coming from perspectives on what we, I'm going to put should in air quotes, big air quotes here, right? What we should be doing. Or maybe it was someone else's idea. Like, we'll get to this in a little bit, but how many times have you had something on your to do list and you're like, that was not my to do, right? So it's like all of these things. I could tell that it was mental and emotional above all else. So if that's the case, then also when we are trying to get things done and create that life harmony, which I like that word better than balance that we want, well, we need to be looking inside, not outside. And that's the distinction for me as a productivity strategist. We're not going to talk about your platforms and your planners and things like that until much later. First, we're going to talk about your values, your personality, your strengths, and what lights you up in this world, because all of that will inform you as to how to be the most productive you can be.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent. That is really setting the foundation when you're looking at those internal things, right? You're establishing this is what's most important and build from there.
Yeah.
And that's when you can get into the planners and the platforms and all that other stuff. But yes, absolutely. Those foundational points are really what's going to build it all. So that's fantastic. Great point. Let's talk a little bit about what you were saying there about a little bit of energy
Mhm.
management and time management. And we talked a little bit about that before we started. So let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So time management, of course, is the phrase. It's what everyone says. It's what you're told you need, right? When you're not getting stuff done. Time management, time management. So I want to debunk that a little. I'm not saying you're not managing time, but what you're doing is you're managing how you use time, and you use time differently than anyone else. So what we really need to think of it as in terms of energy, priority, we need to think about self management and priority management and energy management. Those are the things that are going to change. and affect the most what we get done, how we get done. And it's not just what we get done in terms of how much, but even what we're choosing to get done. There's just so much more to it than you have X number of hours in the day and what are you going to do when. And I'm not saying that doesn't apply, but I feel like it's weighted so strongly out there in the world that we're missing these key factors, like you said, the foundational points. And I'll give you a great example of energy management courtesy of my kiddos, my youngest of whom is about to become a teen, and the other one who's about to become a driver. And if I say to them, "Okay, have you cleaned your room?" And pretty much the answer will be like, "No, no, no. I know. I did professional organizing, but I have kiddos with rooms that look like explosions happened. There may have been a struggle, you know?" And I mean, this is life. And no, 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 they haven't. But as soon as it's like, you know what? Your friends wanted to hang out, and you can as soon as your room is clean. Any guesses how fast that room is cleaned?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
instantaneously.
correct, and done well, mind you. One more so than the other. That has to do with their personalities and their tendencies, but that's energy management at its finest. And I can have days where I'm like slogging along and I'm just not into it. And then, something really exciting happens or some kind of reward, right? Something I'm going to do that's fun. Or you mentioned having an accountability buddy. I love that. What a great takeaway. I have a biz bestie and we check in every week. And sometimes just having a conversation with her, I have like this renewed like focus. And so that's energy management. When we focus more on that, now we start asking really good questions like, okay, when do I work my best? So that gets into, your time of day. There's the power of when, that idea that your circadian rhythm and where you have your energy spikes and dips during the day. When you start to lean into these things that you may already know, but sometimes we're inclined to push through because the world is telling us, go, go, go. Don't pay attention to your body. Don't pay attention to what you need. Well, once you say, oh, no, I guess I knew that. How about if I lean into it? It changes your productivity game.
Oh, yeah, completely. And I think that obviously in Western business, we are used to working business hours, right? It's 8 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. And it's like, that's just when you have to work.
Yeah.
But like you said, we don't all work optimally in those hours. And, if you have the opportunity to work for yourself as an entrepreneur, then you have that option, right? To decide what times work best for me and what times can I focus most highly that I can get these things accomplished. So for sure, that's huge. And then I love that it's also taking a moment to look at what's important about what I'm doing and why. And so that's what you want to focus on, right? I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, there's things that have to be done. If you're running your own business or you're working for someone else, there's tasks that have to be done that you don't want to do necessarily. Getting those things done maybe first. I'm sure you're familiar with eat the frog, the
Hmm.
phrase eat the frog first. Get that thing done that you don't want to do so that then you can do the things you enjoy doing or have
Hmm.
fun doing. I think those are some great things. But, being an entrepreneur, you've got to look at why and what's most important and what I need to get done. Those are 2 good things. I love it.
Yeah. And then when you add on the idea of simplicity, of decluttering, which is why I said I never let go of that. We're just decluttering in a different way. Well, now you have fewer things that you may need to do. And then you can isolate, like you said, the ones that may not be your favorite. And there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle them. But when you combine all these elements of knowing yourself and knowing when you're going to do something and why you're doing the things that you're doing, sometimes the things we don't want to do, we can find a why, we can find a reason that will drive us forward. Like, well, this will benefit the family, or this will make the next thing I have to do easier. Decluttering is a great example of that, even from a physical standpoint. I will often go into a room and be like, okay, I don't really want to do this, but I know it's going to make tomorrow so much better for me. So future Lisa will thank me. Normally she curses me out. So night Lisa
Yeah.
can be a real jerk sometimes. I'm just putting it out there.
I don't think you're the only one. I
No.
think that, we all have that e optimism about, "I'm gonna get these things done later," and then when later comes, you're like, "I don't really feel like it." So,
Uh-huh.
you're not the only one, I think, that struggles with that. But such a great point about doing something now so that future you is thankful, and we can look at so many parts of our lives where that applies and, be that person that you can thank yourself, thank your past self for what you accomplished to help get you where you are at that, future point. I love that. Well, let's talk now a little bit about something that you mentioned, and that was the multi creatives, and you used a couple of other terms, multi passionate creatives, and talk a little bit about how maybe you can help those people who find themselves sort of self-defining themselves in that manner.
Okay, so yeah, if multi-passionate, multi-potentialite is a word that comes from Emily Wapnick. She did a TED talk on why you may not just have one true calling, right?
Mhm.
And so polymath is what we referred to when we talked about Da Vinci. And I always joke about how, he was a military strategist and he was an artist and a sculptor. And I mean, and an inventor constantly. And I don't think he was there apologizing, like, sorry, I'm flighty, but, I just felt like painting this gal I know. I mean, maybe he's struggled with it, but that's what I see so often, that those of us who do like many different things, we frequently get the message from the world, "Ugh, you're doing something else now. Why do you not just pick
Mm,
one thing and go with it?" So I want to make sure that that conversation is part of our productivity conversation so that we understand how important doing what we love and what lights us up and what we're passionate about can help us. And especially if there are multiple things you're passionate about, that was easy for me to say, making sure that you understand how important that is to help you do the other things that you need to do. So, case in point, you were saying about, things we don't do. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, number crunching for my business, right? One of the first things I ever delegated in my business was bookkeeping, but still, as an owner, you need to be paying attention to these things. Well, the things that I love to do, it's not just in business, but in life. Music is a big one for me. And so it'd be very easy to say, well, okay, you have only so much time and you're a business owner and a podcaster and you're coaching people and you're taking care of your kids. So maybe just keep it limited, right? And it's like, well, no, actually, by making sure I incorporate music, I sing and play in a band, I'm teaching myself acoustic guitar right now. I'm finding ways to incorporate music wherever I can because it expands my abilities and it makes me better at all the other things that I do. So that's the connection between the multi passionate and energy management.
oh, yeah, I love that, and I love that you're, first of all, teaching yourself how to play acoustic guitar, that's awesome, and I love how you said that it helps you be better in other areas, because what is it doing? It's lighting up your brain
Yeah.
and probably giving you ideas on how to solve something else in an entirely different area, right?
Totally. Yeah, when you step away from something, I mean, I'm sure this has happened. I solve all the world's problems in the shower and when I'm driving the car, right? Anyone else? So those moments when you can take a break from what you're trying to troubleshoot and you step away and you're right to do something else that's creative, that makes you happy, that relaxes you, reduces your stress. I mean, all of those things are beneficial anyhow. Also, they really do light up your brain and help. It's like working out for your brain and for that ability, taking that break, that rest, the synapse is firing, and you come back at whatever it is, whether it's a problem or some sort of creative solution you're looking for, with truly new energy and new capabilities.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you had shared with me that there are 4 steps that you suggest to people on how to tackle their to-do list. And I want to know, how did you come up with them, first of all, and why? Like, what was the inspiration behind it? So share that with us if you would.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to talking about this. It's a favorite topic. And here's why, because we all have to do lists. But What I came to realize early on is that we'll do things like a brain dump or a mind sweep. And that's something that I do with my clients. I have a worksheet for it. It's part of like my free multi passionate toolkit that I offer. And you say, go ahead, what's on your mind? Write it down. The problem is we do that and then we think that's our to do list, and it is not.
Mm,
So I want you to listen in closely. Yes, please take the stuff out of your brain, whatever's got your attention, whatever has you overwhelmed. Definitely sweep your mind. That phrase is from David Allen, by the way, getting things done, and put it down. Writing it out is great. There's a neurosensory connection to actually writing, but however you have to do it, get it out of your brain. But please, that is not your to do list. That is your to choose list.
I love
Mm,
that.
right? Now, from there, we have to figure out what do we do with all this? So, really, the start of this whole process, to answer your question, is that I noticed too often we had this like super long list, like had a Harry Potter extension charm on it. Like it just keeps growing no matter how much I do. And it's like, okay, why is that happening? Because we're not working from a proper to do list. So, the 4Ds that I came up with are actually related to others that you've heard before. You've maybe heard 3Ds or 4Ds, but they're very specific in a specific order to help you wrangle what you thought was a to-do list into a true to-do list for you.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
So the 4 Ds, and they're in a certain order. Are you
that's right.
able to share those with us?
I'd love to. Yes,
Okay.
because this is going to be your takeaway when you listen to this, you'll be like, "Ooh, I can maybe one of the Ds, right? That you can tackle." And what's really nice is that it's in a particular order, but there's a little flexibility. I think number 1 and number 4 are the most important. The 2 in the middle, you can have some flexibility. They are a delete, delegate, delay, and do. And I wanted to make sure to say that because sometimes I've had conversations where we get so excited about them that we get to the first 3 and they're like, "Wait, what's the 4th?" So the first one being delete, this is a kind of decluttering. And what I want you to think about is that you have this to choose list, you have this long list, even truly a to do list, but you're so frustrated that nothing's happening. I need you to be ruthless here. Take a look at it and say, what doesn't belong here? What's lingering? And I have to release that. I have to be like, it's okay. I don't need this here anymore because, like any kind of clutter in your life, that to do list clutter is going to, it's going to make you feel frustrated. It's going to make you feel guilty and shameful. And all of these emotions are not only unfair to you, but they don't help you in terms of being productive with the things you need to do or maybe became priorities. So it's being honest, it's being compassionate, a little ruthless. It's a combination of things to say what's outdated, what came from someone else, like that wasn't even my idea. It's okay to declutter it, to let it go, because when you declutter, you're making space for what matters. And here's the thing, no matter what, you don't want to list what you don't intend to do. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because sometimes you put it on there because you're like, I really should. Oh, there's that should again, right? It's okay because if you list the things that you're not going to get to, they're going to get in your way and they're going to create all those emotions and responses. And it's going to make everything, just like I said before with energy management, where when I'm doing the things I love, it expands and makes me better. Leaving too many things on your to do list is going to do the opposite. We don't want that. So, first thing is free it up. Go ahead. I bet you know something. I bet you're thinking of something right now that has been languishing on your to do list, and you can go ahead. My full permission from me to cross it off.
That's awesome. Thank
Right.
you.
All right. So that was delete. The second one, delegate. Here's where you ask the question. Okay, I have these things here. Oh, there's something on my to do list. How can it get done? And you'll notice I didn't say, how can I do that? How can I get it done? I didn't say I said, how can it get done? You want to prompt your mind to be like, all right, is there, someone else that can do it? You don't have to be the one to do it. You could ask someone else. You could pay someone else to do it. You could barter. You could ask someone, a biz bestie to help you out. automation is a great one for delegating. You'd be surprised how much you can actually delegate. And again, it comes off your to-do list, out of your brain because it's automated.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right, so that was delegate. The third is delay. And this is very purposeful, where you say, oh, it's not that it has to be someday, like far off, but it's also a not now. And when you're organizing anything, when you're organizing physical stuff, you're organizing your desk, organizing your to do list, you have to think of the things closest to you as like prime real estate. That's where you're going to see it immediately. You're going to have it available. You're going to be working with it. So, just like you don't keep holiday decorations in your living room in a box, right? You're not going to want to keep things that are more of a down the road or even 2 weeks from now. You don't want that immediately on your to do list because, again, it will act like what we talked about in the first D. It will get in your way and kind of be poking at you like, hey, aren't you going to get to me? No, you're a not right now. So think about not everything has to be done immediately. If everything's a priority, nothing is. So it's not that you have to remove it. It's not that you don't get to do it. You don't even have to delegate it, but you are intentionally deferring this task. And when you do, it's a completely different perspective than when you leave it there and you're not getting to it and not getting to it. You can feel the difference in that energy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're making that choice.
Mhm.
And then the fourth one is, oh, do like actually take action. Yes, it's time to take action now that you have removed things that really didn't need to be there. You've delegated in some way so that you didn't have to do it. And then you've taken out the things that are not yet. Now you have your real and true to do list. Now you can prioritize these things, get them done, do the things you can do quickly. Now you can start applying all those productivity techniques that you hear about, right? And then you're not wasting those techniques on this big mass of things. You're using it very intentionally and strategically on the things that really need doing right now. And just like anything else, the fewer things that you have to organize or tackle, the easier it is.
Oh, Lisa, those are all just fantastic. Love it. I already can see how all of those points serve such a great purpose and would make a huge difference in ultimately getting to that true proper to-do list, like you said, that things that you can tackle, that you can get done, that move you forward.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing those with us because I think that's a huge beneficial tool for all the listeners, myself included. So thank you again. And so I want to ask you why it was that you created those. Was it something that was sparked from your own experience that you were going through?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's always something I think that we go through that kind of triggers it. And I think it was me saying, oh my gosh, this is like unwieldy, this to-do
Mm.
list. And then I saw it with my clients as well. And as I was searching for solutions out there, I was coming across like, oh, the 3Ds and things like that. And I was like, yeah, but that's out of order. It was like, this is tackling the surface level. This is saying, oh, well, take action. There's rules out there, like if it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes or less, do it. I'm not saying those don't work. They totally do. But I was like, yeah, but now you're still telling me to like apply this or not apply it to this whole mess of a thing. I feel like there's something missing. So it was kind of fusing together those concepts and figuring out when in the process they made sense and then bringing in my take on decluttering. And that's how they came to be.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that thought process there. And I could see how, the idea of, oh, if something only takes 2 or 3 minutes, do it. But really that can completely distract you from the things that are truly important that you need to do to move forward. And so, I mean, it may work in the situation. It just depends, I suppose, on what it is.
Yep.
But I could see how that would be really distracting for people who could be easily distracted.
Yeah, that's a really good point because if something can wait, even if it's a quick task, it may be better suited to put that and batch that in another time so that you can focus on a true priority. And to your point, with distractibility being high, now you're pushing yourself into like almost the multitasking where you're doing something real quick and or maybe you're inclined, you're thinking, "Oh, I was working on project A, but project B will be fast, so I'll do it." And now you've lost time and energy. It's I can't remember the exact number, but let's say it's approximately 20 minutes of recovery time every time you go to do a different task. I always remember that if I'm distracted 3 times from something I'm trying to focus on, that's an hour of my time gone.
Wow, I had
That's
no
a
idea
lot,
about that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe it's 22, I don't know. Different studies say different numbers, but let's say if we say approximately 20 minutes to recover from some distraction or this idea of multitasking, which is really task switching. That's why multitasking is debunked. You cannot focus on 2 things at the same time. But sometimes, if you have the executive function for it, you can switch fast. And I know a lot of mamas who do that. But take that approach in tackling what you need to do. You have to proceed with caution because you can lose a significant amount of time when those distractions happen, even when you're doing them intentionally.
yeah, no, absolutely, totally makes sense. I feel like you lose all momentum of
Yeah.
what you were working on when you try to quick switch and do something else. I could totally see how that would happen. And I love the idea of batching things. And that often works in certain situations and it doesn't work in other situations and you just have to, take it as it goes.
Mhm.
Especially if you're a mom and you're an entrepreneur and you're, doing all the things that we often do throughout a day. So, yeah, Lisa, I have so enjoyed our conversation. I love everything that you have shared, and I feel like there's such great points here that everybody can just immediately pull into their life and begin implementing. And so thank you for sharing all of this. I do want to have you share a little bit more about your podcast, which
Mhm.
you hinted at earlier, and tell us about it. What's the name, why you decided to start it, and what you share on the show.
So I say that it's positively living. There is a subtitle, which is my business mantra, which is do less, live more, breathe easier. And I think those words alone will tell you that it is conversations about the things that will help us live well and live positively. And it was a step above, like an umbrella above positively productive, because as a productivity strategist, people do expect me to talk about productivity. But I wanted to make sure on the podcast that they understood the conversation is so much greater. Our end game is not to be productive, our end game is to live well. And there's so much connected to that. So there are conversations about entrepreneurship and being a multi passionate. There are also conversations about trauma and living a trauma informed life and grief. There are conversations about picking the right systems for you, about self awareness, about self care, all the things. And we've touched upon a bunch of these things in our conversation today, but altogether, those are the conversations we're having. I just hit 170 episodes. And I'm not stopping anytime soon because, much like you, I love it and I love the conversation. So, thank you so much for asking.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I have listened to your show and I so enjoy it. The varied conversations, the topics that you cover, and you hit it, I think, right on the head. This is about living, not about doing necessarily. We are human beings, as they say. We are not human doings. And this life is about living. And so I love that. Yes, of course, we have jobs and we have, bills that we have to pay. So we need to earn money. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, but it doesn't have to be the entirety of our life, right?
Yeah, well said.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, share with us, if you would, some books. We did throw out a couple of them through the show, but if there's books that you'd like to suggest that the listeners take a look at that you think would be beneficial or have been helpful for you, I would love to have you share those now.
Great, and I love that you said books and maybe podcasts
Yeah.
with plural because as a multi-passionate, I'm constantly saying, "Don't make me choose one favorite, it's impossible." So, starting with books, I may have mentioned a few already. I was thinking of one as we were talking called The One Thing. By the way, I have a favorites page on my website that, like, has all of these books just in case someone hears something is like, "Wait, what was that?" But I have to mention anything by Charles Duhigg on because habits are my thing, right? They're completely my jam as a productivity strategist. A game changer for me on personal and professional level was Essentialism by Greg McEwen, and that's doing less but better.
Mm.
I love it. There's a kind of a minimalist feel to it, but really it's not about being minimalist for minimalism's sake. It's about what's really essential. I love that. Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, I use as a coach, and I really enjoy that one. And one of my all time favorites personally is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So those are some big ones, big favorites, but really important. As far as podcasts, I'm a podcaster. So one that I love to support me as a podcaster. So if you are a podcaster, you may like this one is Listeners to Leads. For content creation for my business, I really like Content with Character. That's with Emily Aborn. The Listeners to Leads is with Alicia Galati. Beyond the To-Do List has been a favorite for like a decade of mine with Eric Fisher. And again, he's got that, okay, what's beyond the to-do list? What's really important in our lives? And then I have to give a shout out to Speaking Your Brand by Carol Cox, which is wonderful for, you know, really tapping into our voice and our message. And in the last one, I always mention this, and this was like at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, Natalie Ekdahl from Biz Chicks and her podcast, and she's had it for a long time. She inspired me to step into the realm of podcasting and being a woman podcaster. And I'm so excited to be here with another woman podcast host. But yeah, I have to give a shout out to Natalie. She's phenomenal. She's got an MBA. She's an amazing business coach. And yeah, she's a good listen if you are in the entrepreneurial realm and want some support.
Oh, excellent. All fantastic recommendations. I will, of course, put the names of the books and the authors
Mhm.
and the podcast names and everything in the show notes, as well as your information that people can go take a look at. In fact, if you want to share now, if people have questions, they want to dig a little bit more into what you're doing, what would be a good way for them to reach out to you?
So you can always connect with me via my website that has all the different places, positivelyproductive.com. There's a connect page there. So messaging me by that, great. Of course, I'd love it if you'd come. You're listening to an awesome podcast right now. I'd love it if you'd pop over and join me at Positively Living. And for fun, for stress relief, just pure enjoyment, if you like to play on Instagram, please come find me over there, positively_Lisa. And you could DM me right there, and I will respond always personally to every message I get.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it. Sharing that information. And again, such great recommendations on the books, the podcast as well. So varied, covering such great topics in different realms. And I love that. So that just gives so many options for people to take a look at to really suit their needs. And so that's fantastic. And thank you so much for being on my show, Lisa. I appreciate your time and your knowledge, and you have shared with us such great information. Thank you again for being
Mm,
on the show.
thank you, Desiree. It is my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk more soon.